Hello, this is Dr. Zek. Someone from this channel asked me which country is better to settle in between Australia and New Zealand. So I've decided to answer the question by comparing and contrasting the two countries. I'll give you 7 similarities and 7 differences. I had the privilege to live and work in both countries. I lived in New Zealand for 5 years, and I also lived in Australia for nearly 15 years. Without wasting time, let's dive straight into it. Similarity number 1. Both the two countries are developed countries. The gross domestic product per capita of both countries are very high. That makes them first world. The standard of living of both countries are also relatively very high. The life expectancy for both countries range between 80 to 85 years, which is extremely high as well by world standards. Similarity number 2, both the two countries share a common history. They fought in war together as allied forces. For example, ANZAC, the Australia and New Zealand fighting together in a war alongside each other. The countries are political allies. In short, you can't separate these countries. They so much treat and trust each other like comrades in arms. Similarity number 3, the countries share common borders. They're just neighbors. New Zealand is almost like an extension of Australia, or the other way around, probably Australia is the extension of New Zealand. But the bottom line is they are neighbors. They share the same geography. They are both in the southern hemisphere. There's a bit of variability in Australia because it's a huge continent. Similarity number 4, these two countries share the same or similar political systems. They are both democracies run under the Westminster system. Number 5, immigration system. The immigration system for both countries are very similar. There are more similarities than differences. They've got so much in common. The requirements for someone to have a permanent residence and a citizenship are nearly same. The two countries have got an open border system. This means citizens from New Zealand are eligible to work in Australia, and the same applies other way around. When you're a New Zealand citizen entering into Australia, your passport is straight away given a automatic visa with all working rights and studying rights, which is similar to Australians. Same applies to Australia. When they land into New Zealand, they are given automatic work and living rights in that country. So that's how deep that relationship is. Similarity number 6, both countries have some indigenous populations that they respect so much. In New Zealand, they've got the Maoris, which are the indigenous people of the country. And in Australia, they've got the Aborigines, which are also the native and indigenous people. The two countries highly respect those indigenous people, and they acknowledge them as the rightful owners of the land. Similarity number 7, both countries have got aging population. This means they've got less birth than death. Both countries have got very low birth rates, about 11 to 12%. The population is just so low. Now let's go on to the differences. The major difference of the two countries is the geographical area. New Zealand is very small, just 2 islands. And Australia is huge. So geographically, Australia is about 28 times land area compared to New Zealand. Australia, remember, is a continent on itself. So it means it is very huge. It has got 6 states and 2 territories. New South Wales Victoria, Queensland, Tasmania, South Australia and Western Australia, and the two territories which are Northern Territory and Australia Capital Territory Act. Difference number 2 is the economy. I said the GDP per capita is nearly the same, but the gross domestic product as a whole is very different. Australia is a very large economy. The GDP is about 1.6 trillion, and that for New Zealand is about 250 billion. So these economies are very different. Difference number 3 is about the population. The population of Australia is about 25.9 million, and that for New Zealand is about 5 million. The population of Australia is 5 times bigger than that of New Zealand. Difference number 4, the way people do their day-to-day life. New Zealand is very laid back, and Australia is a very fast-paced country. Everything is quick. In general, the lifestyle is just very quick. If you're slow, it means you won't be able to cope with the demands, and you're not going to be able to make anything out of it. If you still got the energy, you can kick financial goals much quicker. There are some people who can make more money in New Zealand than in Australia, and the other way around. So this is also kind of subjective. Difference number 5, the weather. The weather is more pleasant in Australia than in New Zealand. New Zealand is a very cold country, particularly the South Island. I lived in Christchurch. You would need a jumper every day throughout the year. Even if it wakes up very clear in the morning one day, you are not a guarantee of the same weather during the day. So the weather in New Zealand changes very quickly, and it's always raining, which makes it very unpleasant. In Australia, it differs from state to state. Tasmania is also very cold, and Victoria has got a Mediterranean climate, not that cold, mild. Queensland is tropical weather. There's a huge variability of weather in Australia, but in general, the weather in Australia is more pleasant than in New Zealand. Difference number 6, let's compare the income versus the cost of living. This is very subjective. Personally, what I think is the cost of living is a bit lower in New Zealand, but the average wages are also lower. In Australia, the cost of living can be a bit higher, but the wages are also higher. Difference number 7, the crime rate. The crime rate is almost similar, but New Zealand is get to a lower crime rate than Australia. Both countries are very safe countries. In brief, the two countries are very similar. They are sister countries which are so much in partnership. You can't separate the two. When it comes to immigration, partnering together and sharing the same database. These are not the only similarities and differences. There could be a lot more. I've just summarized the ones that came into my mind. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. This is Dr. Zek signing out.